about what we're going to do for this week. And it happens to be a little bit of boom, boom, self-defense. We got a little boxing, a little mixed martial arts. Might even have some wrestling in there too to get it in. Because did you know that by the California state standards, one of the things we're supposed to do is teach you how to defend yourself. So, how many of you guys do some sort of martial art or boxing or some sport where you're taught how to defend yourself? Provocative. Now, we're going to talk about all these things in a general context. We'll talk about some minute details as we go, and I'll talk to you obviously in person before and after the shoot time. But before we get there, just want to talk a little turkey. Now, Mr. Warren Himwig, I know that you happen to wrestle a little bit at Herman Intermediate School.
Ooh, yeah.
All right. You want to tell us a little bit about the Herman wrestling experience?
Well, I did wrestle in 7th grade, and they didn't have an 8th grade, which was a bummer, because we couldn't get a coach. So I did wrestle in 7th grade, and the neat thing about this is that every week we'd have wrestle-offs, because I had a couple other people my weight, and we'd find out who wrestled varsity for that week and who would wrestle JV. Well, this guy was an 8th grader, I was a 7th grader, and we wrestled off and we beat each other about half the time. I won half the time, he won the other half. But the week that they took the yearbook picture of varsity wrestling and JV, I beat him. So I got to be in the varsity wrestling picture. So I won some of the matches, I lost some of the matches. I remember one match, this guy picked me up from Leyva Middle School, which was a great wrestling school. This guy picked me up and slammed me on my back, lost my breath, and I was humbled because I'd never been picked up like that and mastered like that. So, wrestling, great sport. Great sport.
And we have a good team here at Bret Hart.
Amen, yeah.
A lot of fun to watch.
What about you, Mitchell? Did you do any wrestling or anything like that in your youth?
I did Taekwondo. That was my martial art. I didn't do wrestling, but I did do, took 2 years of Taekwondo. And I found it very interesting. Sadly, though, my kicks, because I always tell you guys I'm not very flexible, it dates all the way back to when I was in my 20s and so forth. It hasn't gotten any better. But my kicks, instead of shooting up over somebody's head, I can never get it higher than like upper chest. So I'm watching everybody else in my class, and they're firing these Bruce Lee kicks going way up in the air. And it ain't happening for me, sadly.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Shoemake, they wanted him to wrestle in high school, but I wasn't the biggest guy my freshman year, maybe about 125, 130 pounds. And I was trying to gain weight for my favorite sport at the time, football. And they wanted me to lose weight to wrestle at 119s. And my logic didn't compute, so I did not wrestle. I wanted to wrestle. I enjoyed wrestling. I wrestled around all the time with my friends, but I didn't wrestle. But they do a little boxing. And my father was a boxer. My grandfather boxed in the military. Back when my father, he was so old, they actually had boxing as a high school sport. So there, you get that in. So boxing is my favorite sport. But regardless of whether it's Taekwondo, boxing, or wrestling, or any other martial art, we want to remind you that these things were put in place for you to defend yourself. Not for you to go out and cause ruckus and beat up and bully people that don't want to fight, but just to defend yourself should the need arise. Now, here is one thing to say about boxing. And some people who don't watch boxing, they think it's just people out there swinging at each other, punching, I'm going to try and knock it. No, that's not it. They call it the sweet science because it's the art of hitting and not getting hit. All about the defense. Hitting and not getting hit. So, we're going to show you a few things about that as we go. But we do a lot of different things when we're here. Matter of fact, when I was a 7th grader at this very Bret Hart, Mr. Roland Janice was my PE teacher, and he taught us self-defense here, going all the way back to that 2 years ago when I was 17. Now that I'm 19, I'm just kidding. But point being, been teaching that for some time. So, get it in. Mr. Warren Himwig and I both do what we call, it's like a king of the ring thing, it's like sumo wrestling style, right? Get in, get used to being aggressive some, because the world is not always, hopefully it does as long as it can, but it's not always going to be throwing roses and flowers on you. You may come up against a need where you need to arise the need will arise for you to protect yourself. If you're walking down the road and someone grabs your arm, would you know what to do? If you are in the middle of nowhere and there's someone that looks of shady character coming towards you, right? Would you be able to defend yourself long enough to get away? And that's what we care about. We care about you being safe for the rest of your entire life. So, a couple of things we'll talk about with some boxing. Got some MMA things in there, and we'll just keep on rolling right now. First and foremost, boxing. Great sport. One of my favorite sports, probably my favorite sport to watch for sure. Second is a tie between hockey and football. But I know Mr. Mitchell and myself are both big-time boxing fans. And Mr. Mitchell on his homepage has the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali, on his page. And I have the man, the myth, the legend, Floyd Mayweather Jr., who is a defensive mastermind. And, you know, that's how it goes. You know, you like boxing styles. Everyone's got a different style that they like, and they are all very vastly different. But the key is, as I said, to win the fight, the key is to hit while avoiding getting hit by your opponent. A boxing match lasts 10 rounds, and currently the championship boxing matches last 12 rounds. It used to be where a championship match lasted 15 rounds. And then before that, believe it or not, they had no round limitations, and they had people that fought 100 rounds plus. Go figure. It's crazy. Each round is 3 minutes long with a 1 minute break in between. And the way you judge a MMA fight or a boxing match, same thing as far as the rules go with judging. It's like you have many battles inside the war. So Mitchell might come out and win the first round. He might beat the crap out of me left and right. I don't even look like I'm in the fight. Well, he's got 1 round. And I come back the second round and do the same thing to him. Now it's tied. You got 2 rounds, 1 round apiece. You go all the way up to the end, and if no one wins by knockout or by stoppage, then you total up. Mitchell has 7 rounds. Shoemake has 5 rounds. Mitchell would win. Or what happens sometimes, Mitchell's up, he's winning the whole fight. 7 rounds he's got in the book. I got 4. It's the final round. And right before the bell comes, bing! Someone gets hit, and down they go. So, lots of different rules and the nuances of boxing. And we're just going to talk about a general overview. First and foremost, in boxing, you cannot punch below the belt. All right, the old saying, that's a punch below the belt or a kick below the belt. That comes from boxing. You wear a pad to protect your private area, and then here's where the bell comes. Any shot from there up is legal, with the exception of cannot punch in the back of the head, and you cannot punch in the rear. No kidney shots. All right? But anything in the front, anything from the side, anywhere on the arms, anywhere on the side or the front of the head is a legal shot. So because of that, when you box, you got to make sure that you don't make yourself a wide target. Make yourself a narrow target by turning your body to the side, and you have keep your hands up when you're boxing. That way, if someone punches, you can block the punches to the jaw. If a punch comes down low to the body, you can block the body shots. All right. Also, slipping the head. You don't want to keep your head still. You always want to be moving as you come in. That way, you don't have a stationary target. So that's rule numero uno. Keep your hands up, protect yourself at all times. All right, you got to make yourself nice and slim. When you move, all right, you're not walking, right? The way you move in boxing is by pushing off your back foot to keep balance. I'm going to lift up. I'm just going to push off the front foot. That's how I move forward. If I'm moving up, I'm going to move by pushing off the back foot. If you don't want to have wide feet, your balance will be bad. So keep your feet slightly wider than shoulder width, and you're going to move in while moving your head. There are many different types of punches. The first one is the jab. Now, whatever your power hand is, that's where the most power is going to be from. You're going to have that hand back slightly. So my right hand is going to be back. My left hand is going to be forward. Now the reason why that is, like we learned about last week, in the great sport of baseball, Mr. Martin Hemming, where does the power come from a baseball bat swing?
South to north, hips and upward.
Hips up. Can you come stand up here for a second, please?
Love to, Mr. Shoemake.
I love it. I love it. The way you get the power from a punch is exactly the same thing as he said, south to north. All right, I'm loading up on my foot. I'm pushing off my back foot. My hips are torquing. As they're torquing, everything comes in right to the punch to the person. If I just punch with my arms, that's an arm punch. No power. No power. Everything is close. Boom, you're going to hit. Now, the hardest puncher of all time, a kid by the name of
Me!
Mitchell. No, the Iron Man.
Iron Mike Tyson!
Iron Mike Tyson. We'll
I
tell
take
you.
him. I can take him.
We'll see some videos very shortly. When he punched, all right, he would load his hips accordingly, and he would say, when you hit somebody on the chin with a clean, clear, power punch, it's like a baseball bat when you hit a home run. Feels like you didn't even make contact. All the energy is transported into the ball in baseball. All the energy is transported into the other person's chin. It feels like a miss, and down they go. So, loading up with the hips. Okay, so we're going to go, the punches in order. We got the jab, and the jab is used as a distance keeper, measure your distance, also to keep the other person honest. You can jab, you can double jab, all right? You have the straight right hand, which is usually the power punch for most people. If you're left-handed, obviously, you can do everything in reverse. You have the hook. The hook is a punch that's used when you get in position. It is a short, compact punch. The elbow comes up, and it's a turn of the hip. You don't move the arm very much at all. Turn to the hip. Boom. Right? Everything torques into the hip. So if Mr. Moore-Henry was going to come throw a punch, and I duck down under it, then I would come back, boom. Right? Come back right in his jaw with the left hook. All right? And all his energy be going one way, chin goes the other way. Usually it's good night.
That's a bad combination. Your body going one way, chin going the other.
Bad one.
Not
All
good.
right? So you have the straight right, you have the overhand right, which is a lot more hip-based, but it takes a lot longer to get there, which means you're more wide open. Overhand right. And then, of course, what most people forget is a lot of area, small area. Punches to the body. So you got a left hook to the body, you got a right hook to the body, and then you got the uppercut. Going up, and then you also got uppercut dig to the body. And those are the main punches. Jab, right, left hook. You could even do a right hook. Left to the body, right to the body, uppercut, 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 uppercut. So, they all have different things. If Mr. Moore-Henry knows I'm a big power puncher and he's guarding his chin open for the right, well, what I might want to do is throw the jab to blind him, go right to the body, because that's going to be open, or I come jab, jab, and he's got his hands up, but if you look towards, could you face the camera please, sir? Look toward, he's defending pretty good up here, all right? I will come in, face right to the body, and go right up to the guard with the right hand, and you land that one, not too many people can stand up to that one there too.
Well, I've seen this happen too. Mr. Do it slow motion, overhand right. Boom! And I've seen guys do that, but boom, mine's there first, and he's going down. When he's going down, he's already out. So his punch just lands very shallowly.
And what that is actually is the energy transfer, and usually it's a left hook that catches someone short like that. If I'm going a big right hand and he lands, boom, all of my power from my shot is now going into my chin along with the power from his shot. And so he'll hit and boom. And usually they collapse like a sack of potatoes. So those are the main punches. But the key, as you'll see, is not getting hit. And rather than me show you, I'm going to show you some Floyd Mayweather. I'm going to show you some Manny Pacquiao, some Mike Tyson, some Muhammad Ali.
Stick it moving.
All about hitting and not getting hit. So, we're just going to talk generalities today. Come, Thursday, Friday for you guys, we're going to see some in-depth technique and strategy. Mr. Mitchell, who is your favorite fighter of all time?
I loved two groups. I grew up when the heavyweights were great with Ali and Norton and Frazier and Foreman, and Ernie Shavers, and all those guys, all these heavyweights who were all brutes, and they'd all beat the snot out of each other. And every fight, everyone would go over to somebody's house, and there'd be food, and there'd be people hanging out, and people would put placing bets on the fights. And it was like a Super Bowl. It was that much fun. And then, like 10 years later, all these middleweights came up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know, the Sugar Rays, the Sugar Ray Leonards, and Marvin Hagler, and Roberto Duran, Thomas Hearns, and these guys all beat the snot out of each other. And for another 10 years, you were like watching all these middleweights beat the snot out of each other. So, for me, it's not only did I have a favorite, I had a favorite time to watch sports. And it was an era, it was like a 10-year era of just unbelievable boxing. And like I said, everyone, the fights were always either on Friday night or Saturday. And everyone would have those fights, and everyone would go to those fights. And it was just absolutely fantastic.
Excellent thing. Mr. Moore Henley.
That's a great question. I would say one that Mr. Mitchell mentioned, Sugar Ray Leonard. I used to love him at the end of rounds. And he would say in interviews after he retired, he said, I always want to come on strong the last 30, 45 seconds because that's the last thing the judges see of each round. Sugar Ray Leonard would have to be mine. How about you, Mr. Shumate?
Well, I like many fighters. Sugar Ray Robinson is probably my favorite fighter of all time. But the fighting style I respect the most is defensive. And I think the two, well, really the three defensive masterminds of the entire history of boxing are Homicide Hank Henry Armstrong from back in the 30s. Of lately, Pernell Whitaker, the Sweet Pea from the 80s and 90s. And now, from the 90s all the way to today, probably the best to ever do it as far as defense is concerned, Floyd Mayweather Jr. So, I love it, I love it, I love it. We're going to see some clips about that too, because it's some pretty good stuff. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about MMA next time, but know that there has been boxing for a while, and recently within the last 20 years, MMA came up because people acknowledge that there are different styles of fighting, and there are people who are good at wrestling and kicking and things like that, and so they made MMA part of the facet here. Boxing is still my favorite, but I don't know if MMA is Mr. Moore Henry's an MMA guy. We'll talk about that next time. But right now, I'm turning the floor over to Mr. Moore Henry, and we're going to keep on rolling.
Would you guys ever change your name? Would you ever change your, I'm talking first and or last name. Would you ever change your name? Why or why not?
I don't think I'd ever change my name. I was named after my father. I'm a junior. My father was named after my grandfather's best friend, which is his godfather. And I've come to really kind of embrace the name and the heritage. But I think, you know, when I have a son, a lot of creativity, I think that's where my creativity will go into.
Excellent. Mr. Mitchell, how about you?
Nah, I don't think so. I mean, why would you change your name? You're wanted in another state. You're world famous and you just want to have a handle, like you want to have like a name, like just one name, like Prince. Or, you know, so I don't think...
A mononym, call me Shoot.
So, I'm not wanted, and I'm not world famous, I think I'll stick with what I got.
Sounds familiar. Shoe, Morgan, Mitch. It's shoe time in the morning with Mitch. Sports Factor, what's on your mind this week?
Alright, we're talking boxing. Okay, so if we're talking boxing, we talked a little bit of boxing before. We talked about the Thriller in Manila. We talked about the Rumble in the Jungle. Okay, my question to you is, who are the two fighters in the No Mas fight? We're talking about middleweights here.
Manos de Piedra.
Who are the two fighters in the No Mas fight?
Oh, that's a good one.
Nice.
That's a good one.
Charlie Geographer!
Alrighty. The Jolly Geographer is in the house. And there are two major cities which house boxing and have been known as the home of boxing. One of them is New York, Madison Square Garden. But right now, where is the pinnacle of not even just boxing, mixed martial arts sports? Most main events are held in this city in the desert.
Good question. Hey guys, why did the burglar take a shower?
Oh,
Well, he wanted to make a clean getaway.
Oh.
Quick principle for you guys before we end this video. Think about this. Most people die at 27. We just bury them when they're 72. Now, don't take that literally. Most people don't literally die when they're 27. But I want you to think about something. Because this kind of happened to me. When I was about 27, 28, I was done with school. I got a job here at Bret Hart. I got married, had a child. I was done playing sports. And I just kind of remember sitting back in L3, classroom right over there, just thinking, well, I guess I've arrived. I guess this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. And I stopped working out, guys. For about a year, I stopped working out. And I realized I've let myself go. And I started jumping rope in L3. And I got pretty decent at it because I did it daily. So the point is, don't ever think you have arrived. When you're done learning, you're done. When you're done learning, you're done. Don't die off. All right? Don't think you've arrived and then not take advice and not participate in building healthy relationships, acting honestly, respectfully, and responsibly. All right? So find your purpose and pursue your purpose intentionally and passionately. If you say, well, I used to have a purpose, I used to really think these things were important, reunite with your purpose and be passionate about living that out. That reminds me of that song that you made.
Don't change your passion for glory.
Bow, bow, bow. Went the distance, now I'm back on my feet. It's the
Woo! What is going on here?
Still building healthy relationships.
And what's the purpose of Bret Hart?
HR squared.
Honesty, respect, responsibility. Absolutely right. Don't die at 27. Find your passion and pursue your purpose.